He looked right at me and still didn't say my name. That moment will stay etched in my soul forever. I was standing among a sea of proud parents, gripping the edge of my seat, heart thudding in my chest, waiting, hoping for one word, just one. Thank you, Mom. But it never came. Instead, my son Mason stood on the graduation stage with that perfect smile he'd inherited from me, wearing the honors sash I helped him earn, and said, I wouldn't be here without my stepfather, David. He believed in me more than anyone ever has. Thank you, Dad. And just like that, every sleepless night, every overtime shift, every cup of instant noodles while I skipped meals to afford his books, meant nothing, because I wasn't even in the footnotes of his story. Let me take you back to where it all began. I was 22 when I had Mason. His father, Kyle, was long gone before I even knew I was pregnant. He left me with nothing but a note and a disconnected phone number. My parents were disappointed, but not surprised. Their solution? You made your bed, Eleanor. Now lie in it. So I did, but not for long. I promised my baby one thing. You will never feel abandoned. Not by me. I worked 2 jobs waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night. I breastfed Mason between shifts, rocked him to sleep in the break room on lunch breaks, and took classes online to earn a business degree I never got to finish. I would have done it all over again, because Mason was my world. His first word? Not mama. It was book. He was always bright, curious, always asking questions, always wanting more, and I promised myself, whatever he wanted to become, I would help him get there. Then came David. I met him when Mason was 9. He was calm, confident, with the kind of smile that didn't try too hard. He worked in finance, divorced, no kids. At first, he said all the right things. He brought Mason Lego sets and talked about Harvard. He made me feel like someone saw me for the first time in years, not just the tired single mom, but a woman, a partner, a human being. And after 2 years, we got married. But marriage, I learned, doesn't always mean partnership. David had money, but it was always his money. When Mason got accepted into the private prep school we dreamed of, guess who paid for the FEs? Me. I sold the car my dad gave me before he passed. I emptied my savings. I begged the school for payment plans. David? He shook his head. I don't believe in wasting money on overpriced high schools. He can go public. Kids turn out fine. And just like that, the man who preached Harvard decided my son wasn't worth investing in. But I believed in him, so I paid. Quietly, repeatedly. I clipped coupons. I pretended I wasn't hungry. At dinner, I watched my friends take trips while I counted coins to refill Mason's lunch account, and Mason never noticed. Or maybe he did, but he was just too young to understand. I don't blame him for that. I blame myself for shielding him so well from the struggle that he thought it never existed, for making sure his shirts were ironed, his school projects were perfect, his world stayed peaceful while mine was crumbling behind closed doors. The cracks showed early. When Mason turned 14, he started calling David Dad. It hurt, but I swallowed it. I told myself, he deserves a father figure. If David fills that space, let it be. But something shifted after that. I became background noise. Suddenly, if David said no, it was final. If I said no, Mason negotiated or ignored it. When I confronted David, he smiled and said, you spoil him too much. He needs to toughen up. But he didn't pay the bills. He didn't show up to parent-teacher nights. He didn't sit up at 3 a.m. helping Mason memorize chemistry formulas. I did. Fast forward to senior year. Mason had dreams. MIT, Stanford, Ivy League. His SAT score was phenomenal. His GPA spotless. His resume flawless. But applications cost money. David laughed when I showed him the fee list. 80 per school? That's a racket. He doesn't need to apply to 10. I ignored him. I pulled from my retirement account. I maxed out my credit card because my son would not be limited by a man's ego. And when acceptance letters came pouring in, David celebrated like he'd just won the lottery. That's our boy. No, I wanted to scream. He's mine. He's the boy I stayed up nursing when I had the flu. He's the boy I walked 3 miles for when the car broke down. But I didn't say it. I just smiled. For Mason. Then came graduation. I bought a new dress on clearance. I curled my hair. I cried in the bathroom before we left because I'd never felt so proud. Mason was valedictorian. Of course he was. And then he got up there, all grown, with that voice that had once squeaked. and that confidence that had taken 18 years to build. And he said, "There are people in this room who made me who I am today. But one man believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. He taught me strength, structure, and discipline. I wouldn't be here without him. Thank you, Dad." And he looked directly at David, not at me, not even a glance, and I broke. Silently, I clapped, I smiled, and then I excused myself to the restroom, locked the stall door, and sobbed like the world was ending, because in some ways it was. That night, I went home, peeled off the clearance dress, and stared at myself in the mirror. Was I just the fundraiser, the caretaker, the background character? In their story, and in the stillness, one truth rang louder than anything else. I gave everything, and now I had nothing. I started working double shifts the year Mason turned 13, not because I was suddenly obsessed with saving for his college, but because the reality slapped me in the face like winter wind through a broken window. My ex-husband, Greg, had stopped paying child support without a single explanation. No warning, no discussion, just gone. And when I confronted him foolishly expecting decency, he smirked and said, "You're strong, Emily. You always figure things out. I know you'll manage." That line, that single smug sentence has lived rent-free in my chest for years. But I did manage. I worked early mornings at the library and evenings cleaning at a law firm. Sometimes I came home past midnight, my feet numb and hands raw, and found Mason asleep on the couch waiting for me, his schoolwork still open. He never asked for much, just one good meal a day, my time when I could spare it, and that. I sit front row at his school concerts even if my eyelids begged to drop, and I did it all. Every moment, every PTA meeting, every last-minute science project, because I had a goal. Mason would never feel the kind of abandonment I felt. Mason, 15, staring at college brochures spread out on the kitchen table. "Mom, do you think I can get into Stanford?" I looked at him, his face half hope, half fear. That age when dreams feel real but fragile. I smiled and lied through my teeth. "Of course, baby. Anything you want, I'll make it happen." That night, I cried on the bathroom floor because I had $143 in my account, and the car needed new brakes. By the time he hit senior year, I'd opened 2 credit cards just to make ends meet, one for tuition deposits, one for test prep books, and one secret emergency card I told myself I'd never touch until I had no choice. I skipped dental appointments for years. I wore the same winter coat 5 seasons in a row. I sold my mother's ring to pay for Mason's out-of-state interview flight, and every time I dropped him off for a scholarship meeting or ACT prep class, I smiled like I wasn't breaking inside, because that's what love does. It breaks itself into pieces and hands them over with a kiss on the forehead. Scene, graduation day draws near. Envelope from Stanford arrives. He got in. Stanford. Full ride? Not quite, but enough to keep us from drowning. We screamed, cried, danced in the living room. He picked me up and twirled me around. That night, he wrote in his journal. I only know this because I found it weeks later, after everything changed. He wrote, "I owe everything to Mom. She's my reason." I cried over those words like they were scripture. Scene, Greg reappears. Different man now, suit, new car, new wife. He called out of nowhere, said he was so proud of our boy, said he'd love to help now, be involved again. I didn't argue, not because I wanted peace, but because I knew if I fought, it would hurt Mason. So I stayed quiet and watched Greg show up with expensive shoes and smooth apologies. He started calling Mason more, taking him for dinners, buying him new clothes. He even attended the senior banquet in a tailored suit and clapped the loudest when Mason's name was announced. Mason smiled at him like he'd always been there, and something inside me curled up and whispered, "This is how mothers disappear." Not with distance, but with fading relevance. The day of graduation, outdoor stage, chairs set, family seating labeled. I wore my best dress, saved just for this, sat front row, clutched the camcorder, shaking, fingers, proud eyes. Mason walked the stage tall, brilliant, beautiful. Then came the speeches. The valedictorian always gives one. He stepped up, microphone buzzed. He smiled. And then, first, I want to thank someone who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself, who supported me when others walked away, who showed up. My heart swelled. My stepfather, Greg. He turned and gestured to Greg in the audience. Greg stood up, waved. The crowd clapped, loud. I couldn't breathe, not because I wanted public credit, not because I needed applause, but because my son erased me in the one moment that was built on my sacrifice. And I smiled, because that's what mothers do. Even when they are broken, invisible, forgotten, they smile. Emily sitting in her car, diploma folder on her lap, engine off. I didn't cry then. I waited until I got home, into the shower, turned on the water, and screamed into my towel so the neighbors wouldn't hear. And then I cleaned the kitchen, because there was always work to be done. The sun was relentless the morning of his graduation. It cast gold on the freshly cut lawn, made the college banners glow like victory flags, and somehow made my dress, the one I'd saved for 3 months to afford, feel heavier than it should have. I had arrived 2 hours early, sitting in the second row, clutching the program with his name printed in bold. Nathaniel James Carter, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I traced each letter with my thumb. I couldn't stop smiling. This was the day. Our day. The announcer started calling names. One by one, parents clapped. Balloons bobbed in the crowd. I saw graduates hug their professors. Some fist bumped their friends. Some searched the crowd for their families. And now, valedictorian of this graduating class, Nathaniel James Carter. I froze. Valedictorian, he hadn't told me. My heart swelled. My boy, the boy I raised on coupons and weekend tutoring, had reached the top. He stepped up to the podium, confident in a way that made me forget the toddler who used to cry when I dropped him at preschool. Then he cleared his throat and began. 4 years ago, I came to this university terrified and determined. There were nights I thought I wouldn't make it, but I had people behind me, a family, a father figure who showed me what real support looked like. I smiled, thinking, he's talking about me. He has to be. That man is my stepdad, Brian. He walked into my life and taught me to fight for my future. To him, I owe this moment. Silence, a cold silence in my chest. My palms stopped clapping. My throat burned. What? Stepdad? I blinked, still smiling like a fool, hoping the camera would zoom in so he'd wave at me too. But he didn't. He stepped down from the podium, hugged Brian, and posed for a picture. With his diploma. With Brian. With his mother, my ex's new wife. I wasn't in the frame. I was never in the frame. A quiet exit. I left before the ceremony ended. I couldn't breathe. People cheered and hugged their kids, while I ducked between the folding chairs like a ghost. My heels sank in the grass. My lipstick smeared from trying not to cry. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he thought I wouldn't come. Maybe Brian had told him things, twisted things. But no, I knew the truth. Nathan didn't forget. He chose. The letter that shook him a week later. He texted me, "Mom, I didn't see you at graduation. Everything okay?" I didn't reply. Instead, I mailed him a letter, handwritten, 8 pages long. I wrote about the night I skipped dinner so he could eat, the part-time job I kept at a hotel just to cover his textbooks, the shame I swallowed every time I borrowed rent money from my sister so his tuition wouldn't bounce, the time I sat outside his classroom, in my scrubs, just to hand him his forgotten project. And then I ended it with, "Nathan, I don't need a stage or a thank you. I didn't do it for applause, but I was there, and you looked right past me. No threats, no guilt, just truth." His response: days passed, then a week, and then a voicemail. "Mom, I read it. I don't even know what to say. I messed up. I don't know why I did that. I panicked. Brian paid for my final semester when my scholarship ran out, and I felt like I owed him everything. But I forgot who got me there in the first place. I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. Please." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because that silence, that was the loudest answer I could give. The real graduation a month later, I went to my favorite bookstore, bought myself a hardcover novel, a coffee, and sat alone in the back corner. I opened a journal and wrote, "I graduated too, from invisible mother to a woman who no longer begs to be seen," and it felt freeing. Sometimes the ones we raise will forget who bent down to lift them. Sometimes applause will go to the one who showed up last, not the one who stood there from the beginning. But silence is powerful. It isn't weakness, it's a mirror. And if they ever look into it, they'll see who really held their world together. I watched from the stands as the graduates filed in, rows upon rows of black robes, moving like waves under the afternoon sun. Parents clapped. Camera phones were up. Pride filled the air so thickly it almost choked me. When Ethan's name was called, I stood clapped so hard my palms stung. He walked across the stage with the same quiet confidence I'd seen him carry since childhood. I felt the tears burning already. Not sadness, not even joy. Just years of love pouring out in one tight moment. And then came the speech. The part of the ceremony where one student gives a short thank you on behalf of the graduating class. Ethan stepped up. I blinked, surprised. He hadn't told me he was the class speaker. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and smiled that smile that used to light up my kitchen table when he came home from school. There are people who build you, he began, not with money, but with patience, with belief, with presence. I nodded. My heart ached, but in a proud, raw way. That's my boy. My dad, my stepdad, he came into my life when I was 10. I was a mess, confused, closed off. But he stayed. He didn't give up on me. He showed me how to be a man, and I wouldn't be here today without him. This is for him. People applauded. I didn't. I couldn't, because in that moment, he looked right past me, as if I was never part of that journey, as if I hadn't worked 3 jobs, as if I hadn't missed sleep to make flashcards with him, as if I hadn't sacrificed my own education so he could have his. That applause crushed me, worse than silence, worse than absence. I smiled barely and sat back down, my hands trembling in my lap. He didn't mention me, not once. The quiet fallout after the ceremony, I walked toward the gathering crowd near the fountain. Ethan was surrounded friends, professors, his girlfriend's family, his stepfather beside him, arm around his shoulder, like a perfect frame. I waited for him to spot me. It took 12 minutes. Oh, hey mom, he said, waving me in as if I was a distant aunt. Glad you made it. Made it? I wanted to say, I made this, all of this, your life. But I didn't. I hugged him, politely, like strangers do when they know people are watching. Your speech was powerful, I said. Thanks. I mean every word. That man saved my life. I nodded again, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from sobbing. I was so tired of trying to earn acknowledgement from people I had created with my own pain and love. So I left early. No dinner. No family photos. No long toasts. I Ubered back to my hotel, sat by the window with my heels off, and cried in silence. The message I never replied to. 2 days later, I received a text from Ethan. Hey, sorry if I didn't say enough during the speech. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was nervous. Love you, Mom. I read it 10 times, but I didn't reply, because apologies don't cost anything, but absence does. And I'd already paid too much. 2 years later, the job interview time has a funny way of teaching the same lessons we ignore in youth. 2 years after that graduation, I got a call. Ethan had applied to a mid-sized firm where I was consulting. I wasn't part of the hiring panel, but I saw his resume. Brilliant, impressive, top of his class. But under references, he listed his stepfather again. No mention of me. Not as a guardian. Not as an employer during his internships. Not even as an emergency contact. He'd erase me. But life has echoes. One of the partners on the hiring team came to me. You know this candidate personally, right? Yes, I said. Would you recommend him? I looked down at the resume. I saw the name I had given him, the middle name chosen from my favorite poet. Then I said, he's brilliant, but loyalty isn't his strongest quality. They thanked me. He didn't get the job. The real education I didn't ruin his career. He landed another job a month later, maybe even better. But for the first time, he realized that the woman he had pushed into the shadows was one of the few people who had truly built his path. One day he called. I didn't answer. He wrote a letter. I read it. I didn't understand what I was doing. I kept thinking love had to be loud, obvious, public. I didn't see that yours was the kind that quietly held me together when I was falling apart. You didn't raise a bad man. You raised a blind one. I'm trying to see now. If you'll let me. The ending I chose, I haven't replied yet, not out of anger, but because I'm learning what silence can do when words fail. I spent my whole life speaking up, giving, explaining, justifying. Now, I'm sitting in my own peace, and maybe one day, when he truly understands what it means to be loved without needing to be thanked, he'll visit me, not for forgiveness, but for presence. Until then, I'm proud of the woman who didn't need applause to matter. The mother who built a future, even if no one clapped. The morning of the graduation ceremony, I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel room, adjusting a soft navy blue scarf around my neck. My hair was done neatly, makeup subtle. I didn't want to stand out. I wanted to blend in, observe, and quietly let go. But my heart, it beat like it did when I held Noah for the first time in that hospital room 24 years ago. I arrived at the campus early, not wanting to rush. Families gathered in clusters, snapping photos under banners that read Class of the Century and Future Leaders of the World. I found my seat in the third row, alone. Ethan and his wife sat 5 rows ahead of me, laughing with Noah's in-laws. Noah was to give the valedictorian speech. I should have been proud. Instead, I felt like a misplaced footnote in the final paragraph of a long, hard book I'd written, but never published. To the man who showed me the way, Noah's name was called. He stepped up to the podium in his black gown, golden sash glinting under the lights. He looked handsome, confident, brilliant. He cleared his throat. First, I want to thank everyone who believed in me. But most of all, I want to thank the man who showed me how to work hard, how to be disciplined, and how to love others even when life feels unfair. My father, Ethan Montgomery. The crowd clapped. I didn't, because for a split second, it felt like the oxygen in the auditorium had been sucked out through the back doors. He said nothing about me, not a mention, not a sentence, not even a name. I blinked hard and sat there not because I was invisible, but because I refused to cry in public. Not after everything. Not anymore. A goodbye without words after the ceremony. I didn't wait to be greeted. I slipped quietly toward the parking lot, heels clicking on the pavement like punctuation. Behind me, I heard someone yell, "Mom." I stopped, turned. Noah jogged up, cap in hand. "You're leaving?" I nodded, smiling politely. "You were amazing. I'm proud of you." He hesitated. Sorry if I didn't mention you in the speech. I thought about it. I gave a soft chuckle. "You didn't forget, Noah. You chose." His smile faltered. "That's not true. I wasn't expecting a thank you," I said. "I was expecting truth, but this is who you are now." He lowered his head. "I never meant to hurt you." I looked him straight in the eye. "You didn't hurt me, Noah. You reminded me it's time to stop giving everything to people who only remember me when they need saving." The power of letting go. I walked away, not angrily, not bitterly, just free. That night, I booked a flight to Greece, a solo trip, my first real vacation in 28 years. Noah didn't call again for weeks, until I posted a picture of myself smiling on a cliffside in Santorini, wind in my hair, wine in my hand, peace in my heart. He commented, "I hope you're really happy, Mom. You deserve it." For once, I didn't reply, because some goodbyes don't need closure. They need courage.
My dear viewer, how did you like this video? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to channel and hit that bell icon too.